Now let's move on to managing groups. As you can see from the slide, the commands are very similar to the user commands that we've used before. We can add, delete, and modify groups. And at the end of this, I'll actually introduce you to the GUI that pretty much does everything we've done from the command line. So let's hop in there and take a look at it. So the first command we'll look at is the group add command, and this is the command, of course, that adds groups to our system. And I'll do a -- help. And you can see there really aren't many options available to us. We can make it a system account if we want to. We can password the group, and that means if somebody wants to get temporary access to this group, if they have the password, they can do it. And we can change the group ID and a few other things. Not a whole lot. So why don't we just jump in here and add a group. So I'm going to add the sales group. Oops. And then I'll add the HR group. So now we have two groups on our system, and just like the password file, there is a group file that we can look at. So I'll do ls etc groups, and if I go down the bottom, you can see there are our current groups. Remember, each user gets their own group, their own individual group that they're the only member of. And now we have a sales group, and we have an HR group, and we can see the IDs, and if there was a password, it would be in the shadow group file also. Alright, let's get out of here. So what we want to do is put somebody in the group. And how we can do that is with the Usermod command. The Usermod command will allow us to put users in groups. So let's go look at J Smith, for instance. So J Smith, he's currently in the J Smith group, and that's it. I want to put him in the HR group. So how I can do that, there are actually two commands for adding to groups. I'll do a help so you can see this. The capital G and the lowercase g, there's a big difference between them. The lowercase g changes your primary group. So remember, J Smith's primary group is J Smith. And the uppercase G changes to supplementary groups like HR and sales. If I was mistakenly to use the lowercase g and say switch J Smith to sales with lowercase g, it literally would take him out of his primary group and put him in sales as his primary group. And that's probably not what you want to happen. So please keep that in mind. So what we'll do is we will use the uppercase G. And so we'll do Usermod G, and we'll say sales and J Smith. And now I'll ID J Smith. And sure enough, you can see that J Smith is in the sales directory. Now I can keep adding J Smith to other directories, sorry, not the sales directory, in the sales group. I can keep adding J Smith to whatever groups are available on the system. If I was to up arrow, and I'll clear this out, Control L, and I would say, well, he's in sales, I want him to be in HR, and I do this. You might think that would work, but it really, what it will do is it will take him out of the sales group and put him in the HR group. Watch, we'll do an ID, J Smith. He's out of the sales and he's in. If I want him in both groups, and that's what I want right now, I want him in sales and I want him in HR. If I want that, I can use this, but what I have to do is when I specify it, I have to put a comma after HR and then sales. Now, this is one way to do it, and of course you would have to ID J Smith, see what group he's a member of, then come in here, and it could cause some kind of problems. The easier way to do it is to actually just leave it there and put the lowercase a in front of the G, and this is basically saying append. So it's saying append what he currently is in, which is HR, with whatever I put in here, and I'll put sales. Oops. So there we go. So now J Smith is a member of both group HR and sales. If I want to, I can modify groups, but only in certain things, like I can change the group ID. So group mod is not as functional as Usermod is. As you can see, we can change names, passwords, things like that. That's very basic stuff we can do with it. The other thing we can do is, of course, use the group del command. So I can say group del, and I'll use that, and whoops, it's actually saying does not a group del dash help does not exist. Okay, so it doesn't like that one. So let's just, sometimes it's better just to leave it off there. There you go, because there's no help for this, and that's why it didn't show up. Basically, it's saying is group del and then the name of the group you want to get rid of, and that's the only option that we have. So we can remove that, and well, before we do that, let's go look at the Etsy groups file so we can kind of take a look at that on my screen. Oops. Go down, and sure enough, we can see now in the sales and in the HR J Smith, and if there were more users in here, their names would show up on this line in the groups file. It also shows up in Etsy password what groups that particular user is a member of. So there's a couple of places that you can find this information. Quit out of this, and what we'll do is use group del to remove the HR group from the system, and that's pretty much it. It should be gone. Go down to the bottom. Sure enough, HR is no longer on the system. So that's the group commands. Both of these will really come into play later on when we get into file system security with permissions. Then you'll see why we put users in groups and how important it is for administering the file system. Next, we're just going to take a little peek at the Gui utility, and I can show you what that looks like.